Welcome to O-Talkin' with Dave. Put your hands together for the pastor of positivity whose glass is always at least half full. Here's Dave.
Hey, how we doing? I hope you're doing well. I am top shelf myself. Living the dream. So, I've been around some people recently. I went back to the South for a little bit, and it's so funny to me. I fly a lot. I'm in all parts of the country, but I went back to the South, and I heard a lot. You hear a lot of things that are just commonplace when you grow up there, but when you get away, you start to think about it, and it's purple car theory. You hear this stuff from time to time, but then when you bring it to the forefront of your mind, it's like, what in the world? Where did that come from? I've heard that said my whole life, but where did that come from? And a lot of it is charming. I like to think it's charming. But some of it, it's just, I've been saying that. I don't really think about what I'm saying. But, I'm talking about, colloquialisms. You have that in different parts of the country. I do want to credit for colloquialism, 7-syllable word. Come on. Give me some credit there. But in the South, the bless your heart, that can be, a lot of times that's serious. It's genuine sympathy. But a lot of times, look out. Somebody's about to get it, or they're just calling you pitiful. You're clueless. You're pitiful. Bless your heart. You just don't get it. Or the fixin' to. That means we're about to, or something's fixing to go down. I think people are getting used to that. Everybody's used to y'all. Yeah, and hollering at somebody. I holler at people all the time. You go to a ball game, you're going to hear some hollering. Yelling, screaming, and hollering. They're just little things. I remember my mom used to, just hold your horses. Never had a horse in my life, but that's, calm down. Be more patient. Hold your horses. Another thing she would do, and we were, acting in a way we shouldn't. Don't be ugly. If she was talking about our physical appearance, don't be ugly. I thought for a while that was our family, but it's no, it's more than that. And directionally, over yonder, way down yonder in the pawpaw patch, directly, that means pretty soon, in a few minutes, momentarily, directly we're going to be doing this. I remember I've told stories about having to be the interpreter for some Southern presenters at different times. Have you ever heard, my Southern friends will know this, but cattywampus? You remember that? Cattywampus, that means to be, it's a little off kilter. Maybe that picture is crooked. It's all cattywampus. Or you can knock somebody cattywampus. I don't know. I haven't heard that recently, but I know exactly what it means. And I know some people that are too big for their britches. Yeah, I know a lot of people. Or getting too big for your britches. I mean, you feel a little too good about yourself. That's why humility is not really a problem with me, because my family will put me in my place. They'll let me know I'm getting too big for my britches. Some things we can't do now, but we used to could. I'm finding new things out every day I can't do now, but I used to could. So those are just a few things. But when I moved to California, I discovered, and I knew it. I mean, you go up to Boston, and first time I ever heard a wicked pisser. I was like, what is that? And then you go around and hear different things. But when I lived in California for a while, and I think they even had a skit on it on Saturday Night Live about it. I mean, they would do the directional things. You got the 5 and the 405 and the 101, and it's all directionally. Those have almost become colloquialisms for that part of the world that everybody there knows. Same way in Chicago, the L train. You go to New York with the subway, they'll just start saying stuff and act like you're crazy if you don't know what that means. I remember the first time I ever heard the term hella. Hella. It's hella cool. Traffic. It's hella traffic today. It means it's a lot. A bunch. A buttload, if you will. And I should do a chart taking one from one expression and going all around the country with the different things. But I tell you, and some of them aren't really, they're regional, but they're not really colloquialisms. But with weather, oh, I found out very quickly when I moved to Southern California, there's something called June gloom. You pay a sun tax in California and you become a weather snob very quickly. But along the coast, and I lived along the coast in San Diego, during June, there's a heavy marine layer and it's just gray and nasty. And we like the sun there. We're used to the sun. We pay for the sun. And then about, by noon, usually it burns off and it's beautiful. But it's June gloom. And then it lasted a little bit longer and started earlier, and that's May gray and June gloom. Out there, they talk about it as if everyone knows. But you mention that to someone back east, like, what in the heck you're talking about? And another directional thing, and I got caught up in this because not being from Southern California, you just talk about the valley. If I say, out in California, the valley, most people think the Valley Girls or that way of talking or the porn industry, which, I'm not going to say anything more about the porn industry. I've changed my ways. But anyway, the valley out there, it can mean 10 different things. That's like the Bay. That could be, San Francisco. It could be Long Beach. It could be where, but people just say that. But one of the things linguistically that still gets to me, and I got some good friends who do it, but you'll say something and they'll agree with you or disagree with you, but usually it's in an agreement. They'll go, yeah, no, or no, yeah, no, yeah. Well, you're saying both of them. Which is it? And they keep talking and you know which one it means, but pick one, dude. Pick one. But one thing that I never heard anywhere else but Southern California is just no worries, man, which is good. And I catch myself saying it, but it means, hey, you're welcome. It's all good. It's all cool. No worries. You're forgiven. And I like that. That's easy going. That'd be the same as in Jamaica as Irie. Yeah, no problem, man. So, every I guess region has these things. But then when I got to thinking about it, and one thing that sparked me, and some of these I don't like, but some of them are they're ridiculous sayings, in my opinion. So I thought, where did these come from? And this is one I don't like. I hear it a lot. I hear it a lot in Hollywood. I hear it a lot with people who are finding themselves, but they use the term comfortable in my own skin. I don't, and I know what it means. I mean, you're okay with yourself. You're accepting yourself. Okay. But to me, it's just ridiculous because, I mean, who else's skin are you going to be in? If you're not comfortable is it your skin's fault if you're not comfortable with that? And I think it's just a cliche, exaggerated way to say, you know what, I'm all right. I'm in a good spot. I'm comfortable in my own skin. I don't know. Does that bother you? I mean, the first 10,000 times I heard it, I don't know that I even thought about it. But I've been hearing it for a while now. Can we pick something else? I'm okay. I'm good. Yeah, no worries. Another thing and I heard it, I even heard it this week, and somebody did it in a presentation. They said, the proof is in the pudding. Yeah. Well, just made me hungry. The proof is in the pudding. That's not the statement. That's not it. The statement, the saying is, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Which means you can't, back in the day, the pudding could, but it was a bigger process and it could have gone bad or sour or it might not be good. So you had to eat it to see if it was good. All right, well, that makes sense. We're talking about pudding in medieval days, but pudding doesn't prove anything. The proof is in the pudding. And I've heard people say the proof, that means it's where you put it. They say they change it to putting, Putting. No, It's the proof of the pudding's in the eating. So, hey, man, you know what they say, proof's in the pudding. No, no, it's not. Nothing against pudding. I had some excellent banana pudding this past week in Louisville. But that's something that people say. Another thing they say is, and I get this, I probably even say it myself, but bite the bullet. You know where that comes from? I think it's very interesting where some of these sayings come from. That is, historically, when, I guess war times, or I've seen it in Westerns or whatever, when somebody's got to do some sort of medical procedure or operation or something, they give you a stick or a piece of rope or a bullet to bite because they didn't have anesthesia. Yeah. So, I've heard that. You just got to bite the bullet and do it. Well, that's a little bit misplaced. Nobody bites bullets anymore. And you sure don't do it to deal with stress. Nowhere in my stress relieving or getting through a worried situation do I talk about the bullets. So, especially in today's extreme situation, bullets are frowned upon, but bite the bullet. Just bite the bullet and do it. I've heard it. I just got to bite the bullet and buy that car. Well, those two things really don't apply. And to go back, I remember my grandmother used to do this. There are more mosquitoes out here than you can shake a stick at. More than you can shake a stick at. Not only is that improper grammar, but you talk about herding animals. That's where that comes from. They do it with sticks. They would go around and it made them seem bigger, or their reach be longer, and they would have sticks and they would just shake sticks to herd things in. But the reason I don't hear that much out of the South, but it really doesn't apply. But every now and then I'll hear that. There's more of something. That's what it's talking about. It's just so much stuff here. It's out of control. But I guarantee you, I can shake a stick. I can shake a stick at a lot of stuff. And then the whole 9 yards. You know where that came from? I've heard this several times. I think this has gotten out there. There's a lot of dispute on where it comes from. But in World War II, the ammunition belts, that they would run through machine guns and stuff, they were 9 yards long. And they would talk about you emptying your magazine on it. You give them the whole 9 yards. That's where that came from. Another one said, when I looked up at the origin, they talked about fabric, using the whole 9 yards of fabric to make something, like a kilt or something like that, a true, to make I think it talked about certain traditional garments. In order for it to be the thickness and everything, you had to use the whole 9 yards. And then other people have said, okay, it's has to do with mixing concrete, a measurement of concrete. Well, okay, I think all of those have passed. Now it's just give it all you got. I gave it everything I had. I left everything on the field. I gave it my whole 9 yards. No, I didn't give it my whole 9 yards. No one knows exactly where that came from, but yet, there's movies written the whole 9 yards. I don't know how often we hear that, but it's still an expression that's out there. Another one, letting the cat out of the bag. Letting the cat out of the bag. You know where that came from? There was a scam where you would buy, it's not very nice, my PETA friends, which I have none of, by the way. There was a scam where they would sell small pigs, and they would get them by the feet and put them in a bag, and that give them to the person buying it, and that's how they would take it home. But what they would do, there were tons of stray cats around. Sometimes they would slip a cat in the bag and give it to you, and you didn't realize you'd been taken until you let the cat out of the bag. Did you know that? That was news to me. I'd heard different things. I remember Kramer from Seinfeld, let the cat out of the bag. Yeah. But, I mean, that no one knows that. So I think cat out of the bag has come to a point to where it's, you told a secret. Oh, that was in confidence. You weren't supposed to tell that. You let the cat out of the bag. So it's kind of a cruel, a lot of these are cruel. But it comes from old times, and that's where that's the fascinating thing to me, where some of these idioms come from. Like raining cats and dogs. Raining cats and dogs. The origin of that, no one's sure either, but they talked about when it would rain so much, it would flood the streets and actually wash cats and dogs down the street, which was a horrible sight. I don't know, I guess it could be fun at first, but that's the joke. Hey, it's raining cats and dogs. But, the thing that you visualize is cats and dogs coming out of the air. But how many times have you heard that? I've heard a lot of probably things I shouldn't say about when it rains really hard. Some of them around farm implements, and we shouldn't talk about it. Then kick the bucket. You know where that came from? Kick the bucket, which means somebody died. They kicked the bucket. It's kind of a flippant way of saying someone died. It actually came from slaughtering animals. They would kill the animal and put a bucket over them until they were ready to deal with it. It's a strange way to talk about it, but they would do it. And when I heard it dealt with death, I'm thinking, okay, you stand on a bucket and they kick the bucket out from under you, but that's not it. But that's what they would do. They would cover up animals in a slaughterhouse until they're ready to deal with them. It's kind of gruesome, isn't it? What am I talking about? Breaking the ice. Have you heard of that one? Yep. So in past, it deals with shipping. And so ships had to go through and break through the ice in order for less rigid vessels to go through. So you'd have those icebreaker ships, and we've probably all seen those. But that's what it was. It would allow other movement through these passageways. But now, what do we use that? Just get a conversation started. It's awkward here. Somebody needs to break the ice. Yeah, but that's where that comes from. Hundreds of years ago. Yeah. Barking up the wrong tree. You ever heard that? Yeah. That would be a lot of times that comes from hunting dogs. They're so excited they would be barking up a tree and there's no prey in there. It's somewhere else. But in their enthusiasm, they would do that. See, a lot of these apply to things, like breaking the ice. Or you're barking up the wrong tree. That means, hey, you're starting an argument with the wrong person, or you're using the wrong facts here, or things like that. And a lot of these colloquialisms or sayings we use just because we've always heard it that way. So the reason I bring it up, some people don't know what we mean. Some people don't know what that particular thing means, especially when you go to the regional ones. Like I said, and some of them are crazy. I've seen comedians use some of these for their fodder, and we've said them over and over. Like, for example, there's more than one way to skin a cat. What? Well, stop. Why are you skinning cats? It's old. It comes from, a long time ago. It really wasn't related to cat skinning, but it was talking about skinning animals for their fur. It never, I couldn't find anything where it went back to much relief for you cat lovers. I couldn't find anywhere where it talked about the actual skinning of a cat, but they were talking about the different ways to, take the fur. There's no necessarily wrong way, meaning there's more than one way. But I tell you, if you talk about a bunch of different ways to skin a cat, don't look that up on YouTube. I doubt if you'll find the video. But that's I I guess that's unsettling when you think about it. That and, talking about, what do we say when someone just keeps talking about something over and over? We refer to that as beating a dead horse. Beating a dead horse. This came again. Olden times were making a futile effort, much like trying to rouse a horse back to life by pushing it and hitting it on the butt or trying to shake it. It's not coming back to life. So what you're doing, you're wasting your time, basically. And see, I always thought it's like, oh, you're beating a dead horse. You just go on and on about the same thing. It's kind of the same thing. You're not getting anywhere. You're not getting anywhere. But what a weird, funny, morbid saying. Speaking of morbid sayings, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It's a great shot. What an arm this guy has. That goes way back to ancient times, where they, it's a method of hunting or problem solving. You're trying to do 2 things at once. That's what we refer to it as. I don't know. A lot of times you talk about this in problem solving at work, but in a relationship, I can do 2 things by doing this one thing, but you can't kill 2 birds with one. I guess you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, but back then they would kill birds with a stone. And I guess occasionally it would happen to where they luckily killed 2 with 1. I guess it could happen. I don't know, with a wrist rocket. Remember those? But that was lucky. That's what you could do. But there's a lot less aggressive sayings for being able to accomplish 2 things with 1 task. But I love that. Skinning cats, beating dead horses, and killing birds. That's quite a podcast. Another one, going for the juggler. Going for the juggler. Refers, you know what that refers to? The juggler vein. The juggler vein. I heard this so much before I went to school. We started taking health classes. They talk about the aorta and all the arteries and all that. I went, oh, it's the juggler. Which means, the fatal blow. What do they call that in video games? The fatality. You think about it with predatory animals or whatever. That's what they go for. I think of a pit bull or whatever. But it's a fatality. Going for the juggler. But now, we don't really do that anymore. I think it's violent. I don't mind the gore. I don't mind all that stuff. But just that thought of that. I did a sales contest one time for a group. And I was going against the competition, rip their guts out. That was, HR told me, you can't say that. That's too violent. Was it more skinning cats, beating dead horses, or it's kind of going for the juggler? But then instead we change it to eviscerate the competition. What does eviscerate mean? Rip their guts out. And then just calm things, like you're going to try something. I'm going to try. I'll try that. What's another word for that? I'll take a stab at it. What? It's probably an older saying too, just it's a casual attempt. I'll take a stab at it. Where did stab come from? Or what do you think about that? Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. Can we still say these things? Is that too violent? Is that going to hurt somebody's feelings? Is that going to offend somebody? Then you have some that are, I guess, less offensive, like cut to the chase. You know where that comes from? Early filmmaking. The action scenes. That's why people went to see those. I remember the car chases. That was big. French Connection and several others, they were known for their car chases. So that's what they would see. That's what they would say in directing or in editing There was too much dialogue. Let's cut to the chase, which means let's get to the action. I didn't know that, but it makes total sense. Total sense. Like, all right, let's get to your point. Let's cut to the chase. You don't know where that came from, but now you know what it means. So that's helpful. Another one that is, I don't know why this helps, but blood is thicker than water. Okay, thank you for that. The actual saying is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. All right. Meaning the bonds formed by choice are stronger than family ties. Well, that's the opposite of what I thought it meant. Blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, which means your promise is more important than your kinfolk. That's the opposite of, I thought it meant your blood kinfolk. It's the opposite. We've been using this wrong all along. The blood of the covenant between two people is thicker than water, which means your family. We've been saying it wrong all along. Out of context. Did you know that? I think I've heard it recently. Blood's thicker than water. They're talking about family. Family's the most important thing. Blood's thicker than water. Well, that ain't what that means. Things like hitting the nail on the head. I get that. Get to the point. Boom, you nailed that. Now you can see the emojis. Boom, hit the nail on the head. It's a little more violent or whatever than I guess it has to be, but I get it. Another one, shooting yourself in the foot. Shooting yourself in the foot, which, back in World War One, that's how they would, it was considered a mistake in battle, and it happened a lot. Well, it also was a way to get out of going into battle. There you go. Injured. I don't have to go. Yeah, some people shot themselves, including a very famous musician. His brother shot him in the leg, so he didn't get drafted. I'm not going to reveal that. I think most people know, but I'm not a tattletale. But that's people refer to. Now it's like we were doing well and then we shot ourselves in the foot, which means it was our fault. We ambushed ourselves. It's our fault. Yeah. Self-inflicted wound, which is what it is. Still violent. So many violent things. But a lot of them, some of the interesting idioms where things come from. I've always had a bit of a intrigue, a little less than a fascination, but more of an intrigue, like spilling the beans. Spilling the beans. You know where that came from? What do you think? Still spilling the beans. I mean, telling what you know. All right, spill the beans, or he spilled the beans. Well, that goes back to Greece, where beans were used to cast votes. You would come in, and if you were voting for that person, you would put a bean in their pot. And at the end, they would pour the beans out and count it, and that's how they revealed who won. How about that? And people still say that. It's revealing a secret. Is what it is. That's the same thing. That vote, that's what that was. So in order to find it out, you had to spill the beans. I thought that was pretty good. Barking up the wrong tree, we covered that. It means a mistake. Butter someone up. I thought this has got to be from the South. Oh, buttered biscuits. Butter goes in everything. Paula Deen. My goodness. She should have been sponsored by butter. Actually, it's from India. India. People would throw balls of butter at statues of the gods as an offering to seek favor. You're seeking favor. So you're buttering somebody up. I love it. I think it's great. Hey, if there's a statue of me, man, just wrap bacon on it. But think about it. That's what you do when you're buttering somebody up. I would have lost money that was a Southern term. India. I love it. I love it. Caught red-handed. Where do you think that came from? Caught red-handed. Okay? It's from Scottish law in the 15th century, where someone would get caught with blood on their hands from a murder or poaching was considered guilty. Meaning, murder, poaching, back then poaching was almost as bad as murder because people were starving to death. But once you did that, if you had blood on your hands, you're guilty. You're guilty. That's it. Where else would you get blood on your hands? And so, it's still there, caught in the act, caught red-handed. That's still the way, but that came from way back when. And it was serious. That was instant conviction. What about cold feet? Cold feet. Nobody knows where this comes from definitively, but it's thought to come from soldiers whose feet would grow cold, and they would stay by the fire to keep them warm. Stay by the fire to keep them warm, or not be willing to leave because they would get cold feet. So the whole thing around that fear or hesitation to leave, most people use this around before weddings. Well, they got cold feet, or they changed their mind, or something like that. That comes from soldiers who didn't want to leave the fire because they would get cold feet. Interesting. I haven't heard this much. I'm not even going to say that one because I don't think I've heard that as much. Sorry. Elephant in the room. Where did this come from? 19th century, where, this means there's an obvious problem, likened to an elephant in the room that people refuse to see. And this actually happened. And there was, there was a situation where in a circus where an elephant was loose, and there were a bunch of lazy people who ran the circus. And instead of pointing out and having to do something about it, they ignored it. Eventually, somebody took care of it or whatever. But that one instance of these people where no one wanted to act, or they didn't know what to do, if they were doing something, playing cards or something, they just ignored. They ignored the elephant. That one thing. You talk about the staying power of that. The elephant in the room, something that everybody knows there, but nobody's talking about it. It's like your crazy aunt in the basement. Everybody knows she's there, but nobody wants to talk about her. I've heard elephant in the room my whole life, and I never knew where that came from. I mean, it had to be famous enough for somebody to start using it again. Under the weather. I've heard this our whole lives. I'm under the weather. I'm a little seasick. The phrase comes from sailors who, during storms, would go below deck to avoid bad weather. And a lot of times they go under deck to avoid bad weather, and they would get seasick. Okay, so that going under the weather meant they got sick. That's where under the weather, meaning sick, came from. How about that? Didn't see that coming, did you? Also, the acronym SHIT. The word shit is an acronym. Have you heard this one? Going back to ships, they would come across I'm not talking about Noah's Ark either. When they're settling the new world, they bring livestock and all of this stuff across the sea. Well, you got livestock, they're defecating, and a lot of times, they would put all of that crap in barrels, okay, and put the top on it and get it out of the way because it's just a mess. You think about how long it takes to ship livestock back then. Well, what would happen is a lot of times the fumes from that would create methane gas, and somebody lights wants to smoke a cigarette, boom, it'd blow the ship up because of all the methane gas. And so on for these barrels, they would start putting them on top of the deck, so the methane would go, with some ventilation. Didn't have the problem anymore. So on the side of the barrels with the manure in it, they put the acronym for Ship High in Transit. That's what ship means. Can you believe it? You are welcome. Burning the midnight oil for electricity. This is 17th century. They had oil lamps. I think a lot of people know this one. So burning the midnight oil means you're staying up late, working. You still hear that today. Burning the midnight oil. Hard workers. We're burning the midnight oil. Some others. I'm just having fun now. But don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You've heard that before. Well, that goes way back to, before cars. I think it's still true, though, where, somebody gives you a horse, all right? The way you judge how old a horse is, because their teeth never quit growing. A horse's teeth never quit growing. So you look at them and see how long their teeth are. That's how you tell how old a horse is. Well, if someone gives you a horse and you check to see how old it is, well, that's considered insulting. They're giving you the horse and you're still doing that, So that's it. It's considered rude or disrespectful. They're giving it to you and you're still like, oh, let me see here. There you go. The ball is in your court. What does that mean? Okay, ball's in your court. I mean, in negotiating situations where you say, well, the ball's in their court or the ball's in our court. Straight out of tennis. But it's literally, you can't hit the ball until it's on your side of the court. So it's your time to take action. That doesn't have some cool 14th century meaning. But, what do you do? Throw in the towel? Where a boxing trainer throws in the towel? That's surrender, give it up. Again, nothing groundbreaking on that one. How about cut the mustard? From the 19th century, possibly. Back then, mustard was a different consistency. And it was, you actually had to cut it. And it was supposedly difficult to cut it evenly. And so that's where that comes from. Very tough. Now it's seen as, you just couldn't make it. He just couldn't cut the mustard. Something that just can't be done. Cutting the cheese, no, sorry. No. Biting off more than you can chew. Oh, don't bite off more than you can chew. Where that comes from? Any guesses? 19th century. Again, a lot of stuff in the 19th century. People had some time on their hands, but it's chewing tobacco. I remember I had some relatives, they would have plug tobacco where you actually had to cut off. I mean, they may have chewed it, but these relatives didn't have the dental structure they needed, I guess. But I would cut off a little square for some of my older relatives and give it to them. And they'd actually do it almost like a dip rather than a chew. But, people would sometimes, chewing tobacco was good. I mean, to let somebody, have a chew, that was a big deal. But don't bite off more than you can chew, meaning it's too big of a piece and you can't handle it. And that was considered wasteful. So don't bite off more than you can chew. Now it's your responsibility. Your time. Don't take on more than you can finish. Stuff like that. Caught between a rock and a hard place. This surprised me. You know where that came from. Talk amongst yourselves. 20th century. It's recent. It dealt with a labor dispute with miners in Arizona. It was a labor dispute, and this is when it came up. Metaphorically, they were caught between their employers and the law. They were, in the law they were actually trying to change some laws around mining, and their employers, they had to deal with both of them. So in order to get what they wanted, the law had to change, and then their employers had to give in too. So the laborers were caught between the law and their employers. A rock and a hard place is what they called it. It's a difficult situation where actually it means either situation are unfavorable. You know, I'm going to get fired, I'm going to break the law. Caught between a rock and a hard place. I thought that, you know, whatever. Stealing someone's thunder. Stealing someone's thunder. In the 18th century, John Dennis invented a sound effect to mimic thunder. Okay. A sound effect. So I guess it was for film or something. After his play flopped, other productions used the sound effect, prompting him to accuse them of stealing his thunder. Literally, it means take credit for somebody else's idea. They did. Dude, your play didn't make it, but I like your thunder. Stealing someone's thunder was literally stealing someone's thunder. Didn't know that. Did not know that. What about the cold shoulder? Give somebody the cold shoulder. Medieval times. It was said that unwelcome guests were served a cold shoulder of mutton as a subtle hint that it was time for them to leave. I thought it was to ignore, turn your back on them. No, they actually served a cold shoulder of mutton. You bring that out, it's like, oh, well, honey, I guess we should. In that case, do you take the mutton? What's the mutton etiquette? Oh, I love that. I mean, I've heard cold shoulder my whole life. Oh, I love it. So I'm just having some fun with the linguistics. I can think of so many more. But what I would love for you to do, and you've been great about emailing me. Some pretty aggressive with your emailing, and this should prompt some. I got some coming up that's really going to get you going. But send me the stuff. You can on OTalks Official on Instagram and TikTok. We're getting those going. And so I've got an intern that's doing a great job. So you're going to see a lot more of that. But post that. Or you can email me at david@otalks.com or owd@otalks.com. Let me know the ones that your family said, or that your mom would say to you, that your dad would say to you. Those are great, because you still hear new ones, and I have to ask, what was that? Because it's great, and it's part of what we it's part of our growing up, and I love to hear these things, even where they came from. I've heard a lot of these, but where they came from, why they were used. So please comment on this and let me know some of yours. I'll share them upcoming. I've got another where it's almost time for another video mailbag, but I'll share some of them then. But it's just, having a little fun. But hit me with those. I appreciate your support. I appreciate the orders. I'm trying, I don't sell them, but you can buy them. All the stuff on otalks.com. Let me know what you want to hear. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. But most of all, thanks for O-Talking with Dave. And giddy up.